Welcome to my video on exam structure for AQA A-Level Sociology, and this video will be focusing mainly on the Year 2 exam, so the 3 papers that you'd sit at the end, at the final bit in the final year of your A-Levels. Yeah. So this is the basic structure of the exam. So you've got paper 1, which looks at education with theory and methods. So there are 3 sections making up 80 marks, so education, theory, methods, and methods in context. The differences between theory, methods, and methods in context is the fact that theory methods is purely just the theory and methods, but the methods in context section is when these methods are applied to a situation that involves education and the topics that you cover in the education section of the course. So each exam is 2 hours long, and they all consist of 80 marks altogether. Paper 2 is purely looking at your optional topics that you do. So, for example, like family and households and beliefs in society, which I did, and I've also got videos for them on my channel if you want extra revision for them. And then paper 3 is crime and deviance with theory and methods. So you've got a theory and methods section and crime and deviance. I'd just like to start off with the words that they use at the start of questions. So you've got outline, which will sort of be used mainly on 4 and 6 mark questions. And then you've got, and that basically just outline wants you to just briefly explain what they're asking you to talk about. So you don't need to evaluate or anything, which is something I'm going to mention like throughout this video, just because I feel like it gets confused sometimes that people start going into evaluation and wasting time that they don't necessarily have to waste. And then for 10 mark questions, they'll usually use the term analyse or outline and explain, so which is similar to the word used for the lower mark questions, but it's just trying to get you to go into more depth about it. And then you've got evaluate or discuss for the 20 or 30 mark questions, which the moment you see that word should suggest to you that you need to write a structured answer, an intro and a conclusion and an evaluation. Looking at paper 1 from the 2017 series, so for question 1, it is outline 2 cultural factors that may affect ethnic differences in educational achievements. This is 4 marks, so you really want to be brief here. You can use bullet points if you want, because unless the question asks you states that it's going to be marking on your use of English, you can just bullet point. So for these smaller ones, you'd save a lot of time by bullet pointing. And I've put some examples here. So I've just done one point for each question. So each of these answers here will only get you 2 marks. But so in blue is the first mark, and then in yellow that I've highlighted is the second mark. So yeah, I mean, even though I've written these out of sentences, like it'd be really easy just to bullet point these and just make it as clear as possible, and then it's just so much less time you're wasting. So like for the first one, I've sort of stated, so for question 1, I've sort of stated like do not speak English. The students don't speak English as their first language, so may have difficulty in understanding classwork. I mean, that is fine for 2 marks. That's literally all they're asking for. You really don't want to go into too much depth here because it's just not necessary. You just need to put in those key statements they're looking for, and that'll be it. And also, I will say again, do not evaluate. You don't want to evaluate these different ideas and compare them and stuff unless it specifically asks you to compare. Just because you don't want to waste time. Like I think you get a minute and a half per mark. So for these ones, you've got 6 minutes. If you do it in bullet points, then that will save you like literally like 3 minutes that you can use on another question later on. And then obviously the question 2, which I've done in a similar structure with the blue and the yellow highlighting on the answer, but they just ask in outline 3 ways in which factors within schools may shape gender differences in subject choice. And I just want to make it very clear, it's really important that you read through the question properly. I know that your teachers are probably nagging on you about that all the time, but it's really, really important, because if you miss out a word in the question that you just don't see or take notice of, then you could lose a lot of marks because you're writing about the wrong thing. So scribble all over the question, highlight it, do what you want, as long as you understand fully what they are trying to ask you to do. So moving on to question 3, which is a 10-mark question. So it's the first question you will come across in your A-level exams, in the sociology course anyway, that features an item which can be really important for providing you with ideas of what they actually want you to talk about. So for a 10-mark question, you want to make 2 points, but in a huge amount of detail, and do not evaluate them. Yeah, so you want to read through the item really, really thoroughly, and then highlight and scribble on it, like I said before, like do what you want to it. And what I always did is I'd like highlight a key phrase and then write off a little bit on the side of it, like actually what I wanted to do, because I'd often find I'd write the first point, and then by the time I got to the second point, I'd completely forgotten about what I actually wanted to say. Yeah, and like I've written on the slide, the item is a really key piece of information to know exactly what the examiner wants to write in your answer and what they're looking for. So from this item, I've taken the fact that they want me to say about how the league tables have helped parents choose the best school for their students, but those who are more disadvantaged may end up having less choice. I mean, obviously you would need to go into a lot more detail than that, and you want to bring in possible research that you can apply to it and things. But that is just basically the general base of that question. I mean, obviously throughout this, if you have any questions, then just comment down below, and I will try and get back to you as quickly as possible. On question 4, so this is evaluating sociological explanations of the role of education in transmitting ideas and values. So one thing I want to say as well is to get full marks in these questions with items, which I forgot to mention on the previous slide, is that you have to refer to the text throughout your answer in order to get the full marks. If you write your essay, it could be beautiful, but if you completely ignore the item and don't mention it, even if you just said, oh, item B briefly mentions how feminists argue that education transmits patriarchal ideology, then that's fine. That's all you need to say. Like, you don't need to go in depth about it, about mentioning it. You just need to briefly say, oh, in item B it says this. So yeah, that's all I can say really for really getting the top marks. On these 30-mark questions, like we're looking at now, it really needs to be well structured, because you get marks for how well it's been structured and organised. And I really recommend actually planning what you're going to do before. I mean, usually they'll have a box before the lines that you write on where you can plan, and I thoroughly recommend scribbling down all of your ideas and sort of trying to create a structure of what you're going to talk about. So I personally would use structure of introduction, strength, weakness, and then because they want you to bring in another point, you can either use a strength or weakness depending on what ideas you've got for that specific question you're looking at. And then obviously you want to finish off with the conclusion, just rounding up everything you've spoken about. For this structure, it would equate to about 5 minutes per paragraph. But this time does not account for the fact. So if it's a minute and a half per mark, you've got 45 minutes to do this. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paragraphs. That's 35 minutes you're taking up from that, which means you're allowing yourself 10 minutes to read through the text and reread your essays at the end as well, to change bits and make sure you haven't made spelling mistakes and things. And I often find that I just miss out words completely, so it's really important to reread your essay. Yeah. And then specifically for this question, you would want to mention Marxist ideas, meritocracy, habitus, value consensus, and hidden curriculum, etc. I think this is the final question, maybe. Oh no, there's one question after this. Sorry. But yeah, so this is moving into the methods in context section, which is a 20-mark question. Again, you've got another item, and this is the section that combines the theory and methods with the education module. I feel like people tend to get quite confused with these questions, because this specific one is essentially asking the strength and limitations of field experiments, but obviously the way they word it can confuse people a bit about what they're actually being asked to do. So I think really like make that clear to yourself during the exam, like what they are actually asking you to do, and then just try and relate your answers to the item, to what they're actually asking you, and link it back. That's another thing I want to say as well, is that in all these big essay questions, so 20 and 30 marks, like it is really, really important at the end of each paragraph to link it back to the main question. And obviously because it has 20 marks, you want to use proper English in paragraphs and continue that structure that we spoke about before. So the intro, strength, weakness, conclusion. I know on the previous question it did say strength or weakness at the end, but that's because it was an extra 10 marks, so you want to put an extra point into it to build it up, whereas this one you can just have the standard strength, weakness. Then for the theory and methods bit is just a 10-mark question, outline and explain 2 practical disadvantages of using documents in sociological research. So I'm just going to say again, read the question properly. I feel like someone might read this and think that it's asking them for advantages rather than disadvantages, and then they'll write the whole thing wrong, and then that'll be time wasted on a 10-mark question. And then obviously, like I said previously, make 2 in-depth points about the use of documents. And if you're not sure whilst you're watching this, just to refresh your memory, documents include diaries, letters, and like things like government documents on policies or statistics. Moving on to paper 2. This will focus on the 2 optional topics. So, like I said, like cultural identity and beliefs in society. And then each section will contain a 10-mark question, and then another 10-mark question but with an item, and a 20-mark question with an item. So there's 3 questions per section. And then it's sort of similar advice from paper 1. So read the items and questions thoroughly. Don't waste time evaluating when it isn't necessary, when it's not asked of you. And use a clear structure to make it easier to mark. Because I feel like if they waste time, if it's a struggle for the examiner to mark it, then they may be more likely to get confused with the piece and mark you down. So you really want to make it clear to them. So have set paragraphs and stuff. For paper 3, so this is moving on to the crime and deviance. So the question 1, outline 2 reasons for ethnic differences in criminal conviction rates. And for these questions, I've done the same sort of structure. So the blue highlighting is for the first mark, and the yellow is for the second mark. You will usually have to write more for the second mark, just purely because that is the actual explanation. And each bit that I've written is going to get you 2 marks. So it's like on question 1, it's police are institutionally racist, so are less likely to stop and search white people, and so are less likely to detect offences. And then obviously on that outline 3 functions that crime and deviance may perform. The first point that you could make is deviance can bring about social change, as new ideas and institutions always initially appear as deviant compared to existing norms. That would literally be all you need to say to get those first 2 marks, and then you just need to put 1 or 2 more points in that sort of structure. And remember, you can bullet point. I just want to make that really clear, because I don't want you to write out full sentences for these questions, and then by the time it gets to 20 or 30 mark questions, you're really struggling for time. So in question 3, so this is a one with an item. So I've sort of these slides going on to the crime and deviance are probably more plain than the ones in the education, just because I don't want to, because I just feel like I'll be repeating myself, like it's the same sort of advice for each of them. And then for this question, which is apply material from item A, analyse 2 ways in which deviant subcultures may respond to the difficulties of achieving mainstream goals. And then you could like sort of state about like criminal subcultures and alternative methods of achieving these mainstream goals. And there's quite a few researchers that I believe you could bring back into that. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I do remember there being quite a few, especially like a few ideas in terms of the alternative methods of achieving mainstream goals. And I will just keep saying, please refer to the item in your answer. That is the only way you can truly get full marks, if you actually refer to the item in your answer. So going on to question 4, I believe. So this is apply material from item B and your knowledge evaluate sociological contributions to our understanding of crime prevention and control. So basically for this one, I'm really not going to talk through that much. So I want you to pause this video and like read through this question and write out some bullet point ideas of what you'd mention and might put it in the comments down below. I really want to see what ideas you come up with, and I'll try and get back to you like as soon as possible to give you feedback, because I think it's really important. Like, you need to practice these skills. It's no good just watching these videos and assuming that you're going to be fine in the exam. You need to practice. You really need to practice these questions. And so even now, if you're just lying in bed on your phone watching this video because you can't bother to sit on your desk and do work, which I totally get, I was exactly the same. Just like comment down below the few points that you might mention for this. And I just like to, because there is another question that I want you to comment down below about. I cropped it out on this, but it is question 4, this one. So please just make it clear when you write it down so I know what question you're referring to. And then this is the theory and method section of paper 3. So outline and explain 2 advantages of choosing overt participant observation as source of data compared with covert participant observation. So to gain 4 marks in this question, because it's asking you to compare them, you really must explicitly compare overt and covert. So for an example I've created is covert participation observation may create more valid data as a part of participants will be acting naturally as they don't know they are being studied. I do believe there is a specific name for this, but it's been a few months since I did my exams and I literally cannot remember like anything in detail. And then but has more issues surrounding consent compared to overt participant observation, which you could build on as well as a point. Like, you could go further on that sentence, but it's just basic. But that's just to help you get the gist of what you need to sort of do. Like, you need to very explicitly compare them, otherwise you can't get full marks. And then this is the final question of your Sociology A-Level. Woohoo! This is part of the theory and method section as well. So like the question previously, I want that for the question 4, I want you to comment down below your ideas for this. Just bullet point it. Like, I don't expect you to write a full essay down below, but I mean, feel free to write a full essay if you want to, and I'll give you feedback for it as quickly as possible. Yeah. Finally, I would love for you guys to subscribe if you want to see more videos, either on sociology or a different one. And then moving on to that, just comment down below any videos you want me to do, whether it's exam advice videos like this, or for different subjects, because I also have A-levels in psychology, physics and chemistry. Chemistry was definitely my best subject, and then it would have been psychology and physics. I also did an EPQ, so I don't know if you'd maybe want like an advice video on that. I'm not sure how many people actually do EPQs, so because I know at my school it wasn't a huge thing, like a few people did it but not loads. But yeah, just let me know, guys. And also if you just want like videos on small sections of subjects, so just like small on like so other subjects. So I'm getting so confused. Right, I'm gonna start again. So I'm also happy to do small sections for those subjects, or I can research about small sections of other subjects that I haven't studied if you want a proper, like, a good video about it. Also I have started university this year, so if you want a video sort of looking at what it's like to start uni and like things that would be really good, like, because I know that when I started university I was really worried because I really couldn't find anything about what stationery I might need and things like that. So yeah, comment down below if you would like to see that, and I will try and get it sorted as quickly as possible for you. Thank you for watching, guys. It really means a lot. Yeah, just go away and practice. That is literally the best thing you can do. I know it's such a pain having to write 30-mark essays because it's tiring and it's boring, but if you don't want to write the full essay, just bullet point your ideas so you at least know what you would write about in that situation. Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you all ace your exams. I'm sure you will.